gets me in trouble faster than talking. Ooh, sorry about that. Camera off. Um, so anyway, but please bring a mask with you. So at least go through the door. We promised that we would do that. Apparently they had church there last week or something, and they didn't, and it kind of put them in a tough situation. Oh, thanks. Wow. Rick's not only Rick. Victoria has given up trying to train me. Now she's just training you all to make sure I don't embarrass her. All right. Anyway, so that's Thursday, 6:30. Please bring a mask with you. I was saying we could just have like wear a mask and pass to the person behind you as you walk through the door, but let's go ahead and just everybody bring a mask. If you feel uncomfortable, you can wear the mask the whole time. That's fine. I'm not saying don't wear a mask. I'm just simply saying I promised her we wouldn't put her in that position. Um, and because she says I don't want to enforce this. I don't want to. She says I'm not going to arrest people, but the concern always is that somebody's going to report them, and the police are going to show up, and then they can say, well, look, they were all wearing a mask when they walked in the door. So anyway, that's that. No Bible study. There is grief share on Tuesday, 6:30, right here in the chapel. I guess it's been official. We are having the Saturday evening service next Saturday. We'll be recovered from Passover by then. So, is there anything else I'm missing? Oh, we have this spaghetti dinner coming up for Heather, and that's on Sunday, May 2nd. If you can make Chinese baskets or I guess it can be any kind of baskets. You can make Swedish baskets, but they're for the Chinese auction. Please let Victoria know, and she'll get them there. But that's May 2nd, and it is a fundraiser. Just so you know where she is right now. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks. It's from 1 to 5, I think, but I don't see it. I don't see it here. Yeah, 1 to 5. There it is. Yeah, thanks. 1 to 5 in Blaine Hill Fire Hall. So where she is right now is not a good place. They thought they had got all the infection out of her leg, but they didn't. And it's spreading fast. And basically, they let the kids come and see her because they don't know when it's going to pass now. They were going to move her to McKeesport, where basically for hospice care. And I think right now they don't even know if they can move her. So she's still at Jefferson. I'm going to try to get out and see her tomorrow. And they basically told Ken to make funeral arrangements, which he got sticker shock when he started to do that. So this fundraiser is going to be important no matter when it comes. So please get prepared to go and eat lots of spaghetti. Actually, you don't have to eat spaghetti at all. Just make sure you go and buy the ticket and participate. We want to help them out. We may, depending on how that spaghetti fundraiser goes, we may run them again as another monthly charity. We'll see how that goes. Ken is planning on being here tomorrow with the kids. He still calls Victoria from time to time. If you need anything, let me know. I think you're kind of busy, aren't you? And he's like, well, I really wouldn't mind a chance to take my mind off of things. They volunteer down at the food bank, and they're doing a lot of things, he and Emma, to kind of keep it busy. But anyway, so keep them in your prayers. We still don't know anything about salvation there. Last time I was in, I couldn't even talk to her. So we'll see where that goes. But anyway, so keep them in your prayers, please. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Mm, Passover. Or anytime thereafter. I mean, but we're going to be there at 4:30. Um, so we've got Sunset Room and Stratwood, Stratwood, not Stafford's. Apparently, that's not a thing. Stratwood, doing all the cleanup and everything after the fact. Now it's going to be a buffet style, just so you know, and we need to talk to them. We're going to try to get them to do the serving, so people won't be touching spoons and such. But it will be a buffet style. And again, there are some people who aren't coming because of COVID, and I respect that. I'm not saying you should, disregard that, but just to let you know that's how it's going to be set up. And I was going somewhere with that. Oh, so we'll be there at 4:30. The only thing we have to do are you going to have anybody helping you Wednesday night? Okay. Do you need me? Can I go watch TV? Okay. Um, darn. So we actually booked it for 2 nights, so we can carry everything over and have it all set up, the decorations and stuff. We're doing decorations Wednesday night, aren't we? So we could use some people Wednesday night. If you want to be on the decoration committee, talk to Victoria. We'll tell you when we're going to be there. Whatever we don't do Wednesday, we'll have to do Thursday. But I'd like to get all the decorations and move all the food over there. So all we have to do is the Seder plates. Those are on us. We don't trust those Gentiles, so we're going to take care of those ourselves. But the rest of the food they're going to be bringing. And just because you've been to many of our Passovers, last year's matzo ball soup was really lousy. And year before, actually, I don't know what you guys had last year. We did virtually, but really lousy last year. And we spoke to Sunset Room, who spoke to them, because the first 2 years, I mean, it was amazing. It was really good, and I always was looking forward to it. I was really disappointed last year, so they're supposed to fix it again this year. So the matzo ball soup will be top notch. We do not know when the next prayer circle is. To be determined. We're changing it up, though. I will tell you this. Here's what's going to be. It'll be sometime in April. We don't have a date yet. It'll be towards the middle to end of April. So what we've been doing is the prayer circle where we just kind of get in a circle and pray. It started as something more than that, but that's what it turned into. We're going to do something else now. And you guys might want to consider coming. We're going to do something called the prayer chair. Anybody familiar with the prayer chair? Okay. The prayer chair. It rhymes, so it must be good. I'll get rid of this gum. I promise you I will before I start speaking. Vic, I'm going to need a Kleenex or something. Kleenex or something. It's like having a kid. It just is. You got to fix his collar. You got to take gum out of his mouth. Anyway, so the prayer chair. What happens is we will have a chair here, and not everybody has to do it, but everybody has an opportunity to sit in the chair. And everybody else lays hands on them and prays for whatever concern they have named to us. Now, if you have a family member who's not there but you want to pray for them, you can sit in the chair for them. And we'll all lay hands on the person in the chair and pray for that need until that is finished, and then we'll switch to the next person. So, like I said, everybody has an opportunity. Not everybody has to sit in the chair if they don't want to, but if you have needs, I want to we prayed for everything in the prayer circles. People who have been here know. I want to get more targeted and specific with prayer. We're going to do that for a while. We're going to keep changing it up. Those are my only two choices. Those are my only two choices. So my two choices are what? Well, 9th is too soon. 16th. So the prayer chair circle will be on April. We're just doing it live, folks. It's right in front of you. You can see it, That Ronald Reagan said once that if you love sausages or government, you should never see either one get it made. We'll probably add churches to the list. All right. Yeah? Okay. We good? Yeah, don't turn off our sign. All right. We got one more here. Well, two more, but go ahead. Where's my... Okay, hang on just one second. Somebody turned down my volume. That's somebody to me, I know, but still, I'm going to turn up my volume here. I mean, I think this is the only time I have any volume in it, but now this might be too hot. Let's see. Here we go.
This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.
So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself and I didn't know I was lost.
Okay, we are on the next to last week. Here's what I'm going to do, by the way, for next series. And I hope this goes as well as I hope that it will. But I don't know if you guys know, but The Chosen is coming back for season 2 starting on Easter. And so we're going to finish up this series next Sunday. And we're going to pick straight up into that. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to watch the Chosen in Bible study on Thursdays. And then I'm going to take something from that and go into the Bible of that, and we're going to do a sermon on it. So I'm going to kind of tie it into The Chosen with both the Bible study and the series for, I think it's like 8 episodes or something. If you haven't seen The Chosen, you are missing out on one of the best things to come for Christianity in years. So the first season's already out. You can get it all online for free. And second season is coming. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to finish this up next week. We're going to actually finish up. It's a very weird timing, but we're actually going to finish up this series. And if you all know The Last Church, it's really weird to do it on Easter, but we're going to do that on Easter, and then we're going to spin right into the next thing. So it won't be a special Easter sermon this year. I know that's weird, but I'm not doing it this year. Okay. Just the way things worked out. So we are going to talk today about the church in Philadelphia. This is the next to last church in our list. This is one of the only 2 churches that you want to be. In fact, it's really the only church you want to be. Because the other church that Jesus isn't angry at is the one that gets persecuted. You don't want to be that church either. Come on, let's be honest. None of us want to be persecuted. And then this church today is the only other church he really is kind of complimentary of. And then next week on Easter, we're going to talk about one of the worst churches. But this is the small church. This is us, right? This is who we want to be. We want to be Philadelphia. We're the small church. But before I get into the text of Revelation, I'm going to do a wide circle because I've been thinking about this as I have been going through each one of these churches. This is 6 churches now. And each one of them, Jesus is talking about things that they've done wrong, right? So what do they do right? What's the purpose of the church? You know, in America today, in fact, across the world, we have all kinds of churches, right? And some of the churches that we have are a little weird, let's be honest. And some people might think Spirit Chapel is weird, I know. But there's been some churches, I see online or something, oh, that's really a little out there. And there's been some churches, before we started Spirit Chapel, we went around the area. There was a couple of churches we got up and walked out of. There's just too, can't do this. And one in particular I wish I would have gotten up and walked out of, but I was sitting up front. But my point is that there's a lot of different churches, right? Is it possible that we're all right? Is it possible that all these churches in the body of Christ are all doing the right thing as a church, and we're just all that different? I mean, we certainly are diverse as a community. Or is it that a lot of churches, like the churches we see in this book of Revelation, have really kind of lost sight of who they're supposed to be? So what are we supposed to be? If we want to say, well, we're going to be like Philadelphia, that's not enough. We need to be like the church that Jesus wants us to be. So what's the purpose? What's the church's mandate? What's our mission statement, however you want to say it? Well, if you go back in time, the very first church thing that we see shows up in the Old Testament, and it was called a tabernacle. And it was actually a tent. And this is the Israelites are coming out, because up until that, they really didn't have church. There was no need to. God didn't have people. He had Abraham and he had families, right? Isaac and Jacob. But it wasn't until they went into Egypt's tribes and came out as a nation that there really was God's chosen people, lots of them. And suddenly we had this need for something. And that something was called the tabernacle, but it's the first version of church. I want to start there, and we're going to do a quick tour through the Bible and see the places the Bible talks about this kind of an idea. And so let's see what the Bible talks about that. Now, the purpose of the church was always God. God's the hero of the Bible, and God's also the purpose of church. Now, in Exodus, we have this very interesting thing happen because you guys probably know the story of the Ten Commandments, and Moses and God are on Mount Sinai, and God's dictating the Ten Commandments to Moses and telling him about it, and he comes down and finds that they've been worshiping idols while he was gone, and it's a big thing. Now, after that happens, God comes to the people, and he comes to the people in fire and smoke and lightning. And so when he does it, he actually wants to call the people to him. Now they don't want any parts of this. I'm going to skip ahead and come back. Don't panic, Victoria. I know you're checking this out. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. Because when God comes, you have to understand how powerful he is. Sometimes you forget. And we kind of think we have this tame God, but we do not. In the great series, The Chronicles of Narnia, the character of Jesus Christ is Aslan the lion. And when this person's describing it to the kids, and then one kid says, "Is it a tame lion?" And the person says, "Oh no, definitely not a tame lion," right? And that's something I think we forget about Jesus. He's not a tame lion. He's a Lion of Judah, but he's not a tame one. He's ferocious because he's powerful, and he has the right to destroy us because we're sinful. And when you put those two things together, it's scary. They've just been very sinful, and they knew it. And so seeing God come with his power and his righteousness both is a very scary sight. So they trembled with fear, and they stayed at a distance and said to Moses, they should stutter here. The Bible says, speak to God, right? You speak to him, to yourself, and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die. Just hearing his voice will create this situation where we're going to die. And Moses says to the people, whoa, don't be afraid. God came to test you, so the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning. That's why he's here. If you remember who he is, maybe we won't be building golden calves anymore, right? He's going to help you out here. But the people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. The thing was that the purpose of church was first and foremost always supposed to be a place that was an opportunity to encounter God. But he doesn't make you encounter him. He let them stay at a distance. It was God's desire that his people would come to him and encounter him in the tabernacle. But they said, we'll stay here. And when they saw the smoke come into the tabernacle, they stayed out. The only time they go to tabernacles with the smoke left. They didn't want any parts of it because they were afraid of God. But that's not what God wanted. In fact, Moses set it up as a meeting place. And so Moses pitched a tent outside camp, far from camp. And he called this the tabernacle of meeting. This is set up to meet God. And it came to pass that everyone who sought the Lord went out to the tabernacle of meeting, which was outside the camp. Oh, good. But no, when it was Moses went there, all the people rose and stood at their tent door and watched. They go to the tabernacle meeting with their prayers, petitions, or whatever. But when Moses was going, it was to meet with God, so they watched from a distance. I'm not going there now. And they watched until he had gone into the tabernacle. Now, when he entered the tabernacle, the pillar of cloud, which has been following him around, descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and the Lord talked with Moses. All the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose and worshipped, each in his own tent door. So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to a friend. Oh, it's a double. So that was always the purpose. It was always the purpose that the tabernacle, which now is the church, is an opportunity for us to encounter God. Let me put it another way. It's an opportunity for us to enter into the presence of God. Now let me ask you a question. Isn't God everywhere? Doesn't God know he's everywhere? He speaks to Moses on a mountain. He speaks to him in a fiery bush. He speaks to them outside of Pharaoh's place. He speaks to Moses all over the place. God's everywhere. So why do you suppose the God of the universe, who created everything and knows that he's everywhere and knows exactly what we're like, said, let's create a place where everybody comes together in my presence? Why is that? He doesn't need to do that. You know how I know he doesn't need to do that? Because people tell me that all the time. I can worship God on the golf course. I feel closest to God when I'm out hunting deer and trying to kill them. That's when I feel the closest. Come back. And so I know that God's everywhere. I'm always reminded of it. And yet, the God who is everywhere says, we need to gather together in assembly, and you need to come into my presence. And that's first and foremost the purpose of church. And if we don't get that right, we're going to miss out on a lot, because that is exactly what God wants of us. There's this thing also happens right after the whole golden calf thing where God says, that's it, I'm done. I promise you guys the promised land. I'm going to give you the promised land. You go. I'm staying here. And Moses says, no. He says, see, you say to me, bring this people, but you've not even let me know whom you'll send with me. And God says, I'm not going. But now, therefore, I pray, if I found grace in your sight, please show me now your way that I may know you. And the Lord says, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. In other words, I am with you, Moses. I'm not with them anymore. If I go with them, he says, I'll end up killing them because I'm so angry with them right now. And Moses says, if your presence doesn't go, we're not going. He knew that the promised land without the promise is just dirt. If God's presence doesn't go with them, I'm not going, he says. I'm not taking these people up there without you. I need your presence. I know I need it. They may not have that understanding, but I understand that. I know that I need to. This never changes in the Bible. This idea that we should want the presence of God in our lives, and that we should seek whatever we have to do to get the presence of God in our life, does not change from the Old Testament to Revelation. The first and most important thing of a church is it must give us an opportunity to experience the presence of God. We see this in the book of Hebrews. That's New Testament. Let's hold firmly to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let's consider how to encourage one another in love and good deeds, not neglecting our public meetings, as is the habit of some people. This was starting all the way back there in Hebrews, right there at the beginning of the church. You know, some people aren't coming to church. Well, why would they? Holy Spirit's everywhere, right? And yet the God who created us says, you need to come into my presence as a body. Why? And I keep asking that question because I don't know the answer. But it seems that what God is saying is communion with him is enhanced with communion with us. There's something there, or he wouldn't require it. He wouldn't require it from Exodus all the way to Hebrews. There has to be a reason for it. And there is absolutely nothing that we should be requiring or asking for or seeking besides that. And we're pretty good here technologically, but I have yet to figure out how to package up the Holy Spirit digitally and transmit it. If you want to experience God, you need to get here. Now, I know there's some people who can't come to church, and they're doing the best they can. But there's an awful lot of people who don't come because they don't have to come. And if anything, the last year has made that a lot easier. It trained a lot of people to stay home. It enables a lot of bad behavior, to be honest with you. Because we are not told by God to wait out our own little corner and he'll come and greet us. He says, gather together in the assembly in my presence. That has to be something that is on everybody's mind as we come here. I want to get into the presence of God. And so I'm going to jump around here a little bit. I don't like doing this, but there's a confession I have to make. And I think I've told this story before. I'm going to come back. But something has taken over the church in America. We now try to get people to come and experience church. We even use those terms. The good churches, the big ones that have the cool rock star pastors, like Elevation Church, they tell you to come for the Elevation experience. Right? You come for, insert name here, Willowback experience. You come for the Village experience. We put together an experience for you here, and you come for it. Spirit Chapel experience. But that's not the purpose of church. The purpose of church is not for you to come to the experience of the church. It's for you to come to experience God. We are the conduit, if we get it right. The best we can hope for is not to be the barrier. But it'd be really nice if somehow we can create this atmosphere of worship that brings you and us all together and then say, God, we're here. That's what we really want to do. And I've described this before. It's like in the olden days, they had things called ocean liners. They're called liners because the boat went from one place to another in a straight line. And the purpose of the boat was to get you somewhere. What happened was planes came, they get you there faster. And the ocean liners were dying because no one would spend 5 days on the ocean when they can spend 5 hours in a plane. And so somebody said, well, okay, we're going to do something really wild. And people thought, this is never going to work. We're going to leave a port, go all the way around and come back to the same port we left from. You don't go anywhere. It's no longer an ocean liner. No. Now it's a cruise ship. Right? And I've never been on one. Rick was trying to sell me on it last night. But they got everything there, right? Bowling alleys, they got movie theaters, they got everything. The boat ride becomes the experience. There's nothing wrong with that in boats. It's really wrong with churches because we've become cruise ships. And we try to get you to enjoy the experience, but we don't get you anywhere. We're supposed to be ocean liners. I want to take the shortest point from here to God. If I can introduce you to my Savior, I can get out of the way. Because he's what matters, not me. And so it doesn't matter what worship we have here from a music standpoint. It doesn't matter the preaching. It doesn't matter any of that. What we have to do is get to the point where this is all about God. Because that's job number one of the church. And if we miss that, the rest of it doesn't matter. So God has been trying to teach me this since literally the day Spirit Chapel opened. And I hate this story, because I look really bad in it, but I was really bad in it. This is coming in. This is pictures of what this place looked like. We didn't have any painted walls. We had pews in here. Some of you remember the pews? 20-foot pews in here because we got them for free. We were into free when we opened up. We were opening up on a shoestring budget. This was our first stage, made with scrap wood. I built most of it. I was always afraid every time I stood on it. That was our first stage. This is the first outside. We don't have the cross up yet. This is like the day of opening, right? And this thing here, I don't know if you can see it in the picture, the BenQ 1040p projector used to be right there. That was the bane of my opening. What happened was this. We were supposed to move into this thing a month ahead of time. But what happened, because of a lot of things I can't get into, we only had 2 weeks. So we went from having one whole month to open to having 2 weeks to open. And we had probably a team of 5 people, maybe 6, to do all the work. And we had a lot of work to do because we wanted to have this kind of a church, right? I felt if God was calling me, I couldn't figure out why he'd call me for anything else except for this, because I know some of this stuff. So I ordered it all in. It was sitting here in boxes. No one even knew what was in the boxes but me. And we're coming up to the date when we should be there. We don't even have the stage built yet, and we don't have anything. It takes forever to just build this screen and put it up. Everything took time. You know, everybody's been in a project like that. Everything takes time. And as we get closer and closer to the date we're supposed to open, I realized, I got to preach, and I'm also leading worship that day because that's all we had, right? So I got to get all that ready. And so on Saturday night, everybody's still here trying to get stuff put together, and we're remembering a million other things we don't have yet. I said, I have to get out of here. I've got to go do my sermon. You know, I have to preach tomorrow. So I drive home to work on my sermon, and for the next several hours, everybody's here. And Stas is working with, I think actually Terrell's husband, Jim, putting that up. And it was a big problem like everything else was, but they finally got it up. We used to have the computer station right here. And so they had to run a 50-foot cable up to the projector, right? And something that they didn't know to do is you always test equipment before you hang it up and run. They didn't. So they get everything hung up and plugged in, and they tested, and it doesn't work. So I'm home, busily trying to get my sermon done, and I'm getting phone calls like every 5 minutes, like, "You guys have to leave me alone. I got a sermon to do, and I'm righteous. Darn it, leave me alone." And so I'm working on this, and Victoria's calling me, and she getting madder at me every phone call. It's not working. I said, "Well, I don't know what to do. I'll just have to fix it later. I guess it's up to me. And so 9, 10 o'clock comes, and Stas actually leaves, goes out with some friends to the club to go dancing, because he did that in those days. And I come down here about that time, and I try everything. I can't get to work either. I was convinced it was something those noobs just didn't know how to do, right? And it turns out, no, it wouldn't work. And I don't know why. It just wouldn't work. And I spent hours on forums and trying to figure things out. Time's ticking away, and I realized I got without that I don't have anything here. I don't have my slides. I don't have words for the songs. I got nothing. I need that, and I'm just beside myself. And so finally, I'm going to set up some kind of a temporary thing here, and I'm dragging stuff out, finding other projectors and boxes, and it was a mess. And I'm sitting here, and I'm just getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And all of a sudden, the door opens up. Stas walks in. He's been to the club and back already. And asked Victoria where he was, and she goes, "He's down there. Don't talk to him. He don't want to talk to anybody." And so he comes on down and says, "Is there anything I can help?" So we got everything set up and kind of did a test run, this really pathetic setup here, and then we go home. And I always make a joke about how they honor Spirit Chapel's opening by turning back the clocks every year. Well, the way I know the clock's going to turn back is on the way home, one of Stas's friends texted him, "Hey, are you okay? Did you make it home okay?" And he replied, "Yes, I'm fine." And his reply came back an hour before the other message, because the time switched right in the middle of that. And so I get home, and it's, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I've been fighting a cold anyway. Victoria's got one. And I'm sitting in the car, and I am angry. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm angry. And I have one of my David Psalms with prayer, with God, right? You know, the ones where he just says what's on his heart, and he just shouts out at God because he's angry. He doesn't hold anything back. That was me that day. Basically, my prayer went something like this: anytime you want to step up and do something for your church, God, you let me know. Because right now I see me doing all the work and you not doing anything, and I don't know what's wrong with the projector, but I know if you can create the human body, you could fix it, and you didn't. Forget me getting it bad in the first place. How about fixing it? You can fix it. I know you can. But it's silence from heaven. And I'm working really, really hard here to put together a church that, by the way, wasn't my idea. I didn't want to do this church. I did not want to do this church. But I am. I'm trying to do the best I can do. I'm trying to be true to the vision I believe you gave me. And you're doing nothing. And I sure would appreciate some help. And there's dead silence in the car after that, which, it's just great that God didn't strike with the lightning bolt and kill me, for that kind of an attitude. But it was, and God, I haven't had these great moments in my life where I felt God spoke to me maybe 3, 4 times in my life, but this is one of them. Because all of a sudden God spoke. And I'll never forget what he said, because like I said, it doesn't happen that often, but in this case, really, it was kind of loud. He said, "Whether the projector works or the projector doesn't will make no difference if I do not show up." And you can't imagine the horror that I felt when he said that. I said, "Not show up?" I didn't even know that was an option. I said, what do you mean not show up? You've got to be there. I mean, this is your church. You have to be there. I can't. And then I realized what he was saying. All my focus was on that projector. And none of my focus had been on praying to make sure God showed up. The stuff that really mattered, I wasn't focused on. And I just sat there really suddenly very deflated and not knowing what to do, because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's too late now, right? I'm opening up and I've kind of blown it. And I said, what do I need to do? Now what? What do I do? And God said, first you repent, which you're doing now, and then you apologize. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." He says, "Not to me. You need to apologize to your team that you've been driving like slaves for 2 weeks, starting with your wife." I said, "Okay, but I'm not waking her up at 3 in the morning. I'm just not going to do that." So I said, okay, I will. So I went to bed. A few hours later, we got up, and here's how I knew Victoria was still very mad at me from the night before. She got up to get dressed, and she went in the closet and stayed there. She was getting dressed in the closet. Now, we have a walk-in closet, but she never dresses in the walk-in closet. I was like, she didn't even want to look at me, So, okay, well, here we go, Lord. Start with Victoria. So I open the door, and she turns around. What? I said, okay. I said, before you say anything, I have something I want to tell you that comes from God. What? I'm supposed to apologize to you. I'm sorry. And then now she's like, okay, what are you sorry for? You have to. And I said, I'm sorry for everything I've been saying the past 2 days, especially, and driving you guys. And I had my focus on the wrong thing, and I'm sorry. And then she starts crying. She said, that's all I wanted to hear, And so I came. I had an apology tour that morning. I saw everybody that worked on the church that week, 2 weeks before, and I went to apologize. Some of them were shocked, I said, no. And they said, no, it's really nothing. I said, oh, no, it's something, because God told me it was something, so I have to apologize to you. And I'm really, really sorry. So we opened up the church that day, and it was pathetic. Really, I'm sitting here with my guitar, and it was right here, and it was really bad. We had 21 people here. That was the other thing. I needed to be ready, because I needed to be ready for the crowds. It was really funny looking back on it now. But I'll tell you what happened here that day. God showed up. And I'll tell you how, because it was a way that even at the time I didn't fully recognize. The peace of God entered this room. Now, God has a lot of characteristics, a lot of attributes. And we talk about Jehovah Jireh. We talk about Jehovah Rapha. We talk about all these different things that God does for us. And they're all these different names. But Prince of Peace is one of his greatest. The God of peace is really great. And I just believe that God had all this he could have shown of him, because he's so great, that he thought what they really need right now is peace. And he was absolutely right. And so... And here's how the Spirit manifested itself. It wasn't screaming, shouting, and all that. And I'm not saying that God can't manifest himself that way. I'm saying he didn't. But when it was all over, I'll never forget this. I was sitting here and I was preaching, and we didn't do an end or anything. We're done. And by the way, in those days, I preached 20 minutes. Can you believe it? I was in and out. It was like 5 minutes to 11, and we were done. And people looking around like, wow, that was fast. And nobody left. We were done before 11, and it was, 1:30, 2 o'clock before people finally left. It was like, we didn't know what to do. It's like, this is our first day at church. What do? Do you kick people out after an hour? And it's not like anybody was running around doing it. It's like people were talking amongst themselves, but a lot of people were just sitting there talking amongst their families. Not about even church necessarily, but no one wanted to leave because the peace of God was here. It's like I have this dog, and he's got these yeast and skin and itch problems and stuff, and he's always licking and chewing and stuff. I got him this medicine that kills the itch, takes the itch away, and as soon as I gave it to him, he fell asleep. Not because the medicine puts him asleep. He finally stopped itching. He could finally get some sleep, right? When the peace of God descended like that, it wasn't that it was like this thing that people noticed. They just noticed there was an absence of everything, and they're like, I don't want to leave here. This feels good. This feels normal, right? That's what happened that day. God showed up. I wish I could tell you every day that has happened, every week and every Sunday. We've had something like that. We've had some. We've had him show up in all kinds of different ways. But we need to start being more intentional about making sure that we have prepared the way in our hearts so he shows up here. Now, there were some people that got up and left. Not all 21 people stayed. But 17 of them probably stayed. And I'm not criticizing people who got up and left, but it's also possible, because I've done this, I've sat in a church service where God moved to the point where I was weeping, and the person next to me was looking at their watch. You don't have to encounter God, and you won't encounter God unless you open your heart. And we have to understand that. So now move up to the next thing Jesus says about the church. And this is Jesus speaking now in a famous, again, verse. He says to Peter, he says, I say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will be my church. Of course, the Greek word for Peter is Petra, and Petra is rock in Greek. And so he says, I'm changing your name to the rock upon which I'm going to build my church. I want to point out that's the foundation, not the head. Because there's a certain denomination that says that Peter's the head of the church. He's not. He's the foundation. And what Jesus is really saying was this declaration of faith that Jesus just had is the rock that he's going to build it on. Because Peter's just said, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. He says, that's the foundation of everything. But then he goes on, he says something really weird. But before I get to that, let me show you the word here for church. The church is ecclesia, and it means an assembly of Christians gathered for worship, united in one body. It does not mean a building. The church is not the building. The church is the people. It's always been thus, it will ever be so. When Jesus speaks of the church, he is speaking of the people. Right? So this is what he's saying. He's saying, on this rock, I'm going to build my church. There's more people coming. I'm going to build on you. So he goes on and finishes it. Oh, let's see. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at my slides. They're out of order, but that's okay. We'll go. So the church is always people who are seeking God, first and foremost. In Jeremiah, he says, look, if you call upon me and go and pray to me, then I'll listen to you, and you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. When you search for me with all your heart, then you will find me. James has a very succinct way of putting it. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. So as always, this is the double thing here. In other words, we're all here, but not all of us are all here. People come to church for a lot of different reasons. And look, I've been in church with my mind was somewhere else, my heart was somewhere else. But if you want to experience God, you got to be here. You have to be seeking him. You have to be seeking to find him. And if you do, he promises, if you draw near to me, I will draw near to you. That's the secret. The thing that's cool about this is there's no qualification other than that. He doesn't say, draw near to me and say the right things and I'll be there. Or give the right money and I'll be there. Or sing the right songs and I'll be there. He says, draw near to me with a heart that wants to find me, and you will. Right? Guarantee, promise. That's what I need from you. He says, I just need you to come to me. That's what I'm after. I want that. So we have to know that that's what God is trying to do. He's trying to bring us to that. So the next thing that Jesus says in that same verse, he goes on and says something really weird. On this rock I'm going to build a church, and I say to you that you are Peter. On this rock I will build a church, and the gates of Hades, or hell, shall not prevail against it. Now, when I grew up in a Presbyterian church, and it was very common for a Presbyterian church to have iron wrought gates around it, especially the ones in the city. And you go to church, and you open the gate up, and there's a little like a courtyard. You go to the church, right? And so that's always what I thought this verse was talking about. But it's not the gates of the church. It's the gates of hell. Jesus is describing a church on the attack, not on defense. He's saying this church is going to get on the move, and the gates of hell are not going to be able to withstand it. The second mandate to the church, after seeking the presence of God, is joining in the fight. Remember the Lord's Prayer? This shouldn't surprise us. I mean, Jesus talks about this all the time. Pray like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's our job. By the way, it was Jesus' job. Number one thing he says, I am here to do the will of the one who sent me. That's it. He talks about that more than love, more than money, more than anything. I'm here to do the will of the Father. That's it. And then he teaches us to pray, and he hands it to us. By the way, you're part of me now. This is your job too. You're here to do the will of the Father. And the will of the Father is going to bring down the gates of hell. We don't have to go looking for it because it's a spiritual fight. We are to join in the spiritual fight that's going on between heaven and hell. Right here on earth, not later, right now. We know that it's a spiritual fight because Jesus says it's a spiritual fight. When he's before Pontius Pilate, Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. My apostles would be arming themselves right now and leading 5,000 people here to fight if I were worried about what goes on here on earth. But I don't, because my kingdom's in heaven. You're part of his kingdom. You're joining the fight, not here on earth, but for heaven. The fight takes place, but it's heaven's fight. We're fighting for the souls of the people. We're fighting to get rid of the strongholds that the enemy has established. But we don't have to go doing anything because he's equipping us right here in order to do this. And that is actually the third purpose of the church. We are here to equip the saints. Come in the presence of God, join in the spiritual fight, and equip you so you can actually fight the spiritual fight. There's only one more. These are the first, and if anybody wants to challenge that, we can talk about it. But when I went through the scriptures, this is what I saw. 1, 2, and 3. And the reason I got 1, 2, and 3 is because both of these come from Jesus. And then we get to this part where Paul kind of chimes in and says, here's how you get ready for the fight. He says, look, my brethren, you need to be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God. Why? So you may be able to stand against the wiles or treachery of the devil. You need to be equipped. The devil's coming after you. You're in the fight. Whether you know it or not, you're in the fight. The devil knows he's in a fight. See, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God so that you may be able to withstand the evil in the evil day, and having done all that, stand. This is the fight. This is the fight that you're in, whether you know it or not. This is the fight that you're in, whether you want to be in it or not. The only question is, are you going to be a soldier or a casualty? That's really your only choices. Because you're either fighting with Jesus or you're a casualty. You're what they call cannon fodder for the enemy. But he says, look, you are fighting against principalities, powers, and the rulers of the darkness of this age. Do you not know there are rulers right now that have risen up? You don't see it? How do you think the whole world went nuts? It wasn't coordinated. It's the rulers of the world making a move. They've done it several times. Principalities and spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. It is our job to pull those down. The good news is we're given what we need to do it. You don't have to go out and do it. You can do it right where you are. Part of the assembly is our job is supposed to teach you how to do this. We're supposed to do this, and we're supposed to come together in order to do that. In Galatians, it says this, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore them, correct them, that person, but do it in a gentle way, and watch yourselves, because you could also be tempted. And then he said this is the fourth mandate of the church. Bear one another's burdens. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. We're supposed to be faithful to Jesus, and we're supposed to also build each other up. That's why Jesus wants us together, not alone. If you take the imagery of the flock, and you've ever watched any of these National Geographic movies, it's the sheep that strays that gets attacked by the wolf. And if a wolf pack works, they work to separate some of them from the rest of the pack. Because when they're alone, they're easier to pick off. To defend against that, Jesus says, come together. Come together as a community in communion with the Father. Build each other up. Help each other out. Bear each other's burdens. Pray for each other. Speak with each other. We're supposed to be in it together as a community. Now, finally, let's get to Revelation. Here's what Jesus says about Philadelphia, the church that's doing all this, the one that Jesus is happy with. To the angel of the church in Philadelphia, write this, he says. These things, watch this. Notice, he came in fire once, he came with a sword once, he came with the Son of God in judgment once, but watch how he comes to Philadelphia. These things says he who is holy, he who is true, who has the key of David, who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. Jesus says, I'm the one who's really in charge. I'm the one who opens the things that matter and shuts the things that don't. It's me. And I'm coming to you with the key. Not with a sword. I'm coming with the key. He says, look, I know your works. I know what you guys are doing. I see it. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have little strength, I see you. I know you're small. I know you don't have much strength. But I see you. God sees. I see you. And I know you have little strength, but you have kept my word. So on earth, your strength is small. But in heaven, you have the backing of the King of Kings. And he goes on and says, and you have never denied my name. So indeed, I will make those in the synagogue of Satan, all these fake churches, who say they're Jews, but they're not, they lie. Indeed, I'll make them come and worship before your feet, and to know that I loved you. There's a lot of fakers out there, Jesus says, but in the last day, they're going to come and know I loved you, even though you're small. Because you have kept my command to persevere, I also will keep you from the hour of trial which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on earth. Now, there's a lot of debate about what Jesus just said there. Some theologians believe, and this is certainly what the text says, the church of Philadelphia, Jesus is going to take away before the tribulation. Why? Because they were faithful, they kept his word, and they never denied his name. He says, because of this, this is my reward to you. I'm going to take you out in that hour. You're not going to see it. And then everybody's going to know how much I loved you. Behold, I am coming quickly. Hold fast to what you have, so no one may take your crown. He who overcomes, I'll make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will never go out. You'll be safe there. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of the heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. So this is what Jesus is saying. This church has been faithful to everything I've asked of it. And so I'm going to reward it. But it's the smallest church he wrote to. Ephesus is huge. This is the smallest church. And yet, they were the most successful church, according to what Jesus describes. Now, why? Well, clearly, part of it has to do with the hearts of the people. Clearly. But I think there's also kind of an inherent issue that other churches run into because they focus on things like growth instead of things like God's presence. Because nowhere in the Bible do I see that is the purpose of the church to grow. I just don't. Now, so, but isn't that the natural thing? You know, if a church is successful, it's going to grow. It can be a natural thing. But I have the books on church growth. And it's not natural. It's man-made. They have formulas that will teach you how to grow a church. And the formulas work. Because if you treat a church like a business formulas work. But Jesus is saying, I don't care about that. What I care about this is did you keep my name? Did you keep my word? And did you follow my instructions? That's all I care about. I don't care how small you are, he says, because I'm a big God. The people in this room, look around. We're a majority when you put us with God. Right? We could take anything with just the people in this room and God. That's all we need. We're a majority. God says, I don't need you to be great. I'm great. What I need you to be is faithful. Will you be faithful? And I actually think that sometimes churches grow to their own detriment. There was a study done by Barna Group and Pew Research. These are two Christian organizations. They were wondering why churches grow to be 150 and then have troubles. They contract at 150. And church growth can be measured by a lot of things, but there was this barrier at 150. There's also a barrier at 500 and 2,000. But the first barrier, the one that really destroyed a lot of church growth, was 150. They couldn't figure out why. And they went back and they checked. There's some studies out that have said that a human being can generally have knowledge of 150 people. That's it. After that, you have to start forgetting some people to get to know more people. You can only know 150. And certainly knowing at a Jewish level, you couldn't know more than that. And so what actually happens is they hit that barrier, and then what your mind does, it not only starts forgetting people, it forgets extra people because it might need more, right? Because 300 people now are coming. And so people are actually having a hard time keeping up, and it doesn't feel the same to them anymore, and so they start backing out. It's just, they don't know why, but there's like, I can't. It's because you can't have fellowship, deep fellowship with communion with more than 150 people on an average. And on an average, that's where the church has hit the barrier. And I think that's actually a problem. I'm looking around here before I say this. I know you all. I know you by name. I can sit down and talk to you. I could ask you about things that are going on in your life. Not because I'm a great guy. I'm actually very, very bad at these kind of things. But I know you all. There aren't many people. But God doesn't care we're small. And how can we possibly have communion with each other if we can't know each other? Now, sometimes people hold themselves back. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to know people. That's them. I'm talking about the church. I'm talking about the purpose of the church. The purpose of the church is to know each other because we're supposed to build each other up. We're supposed to bear each other's burdens. How can I bear your burdens if I don't even know your name? When we first got started and we started experiencing first growth, a lot of people said, we need to start wearing name tags. I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I thought, when we get over 150, we'll wear name tags. I thought, I don't want to get over 150. We get over 150, we'll split. Because you can't get to know a lot of people at once. Not really. And so I think there is something about this. The reason Philadelphia is the one church that succeeds, I think, has something to do with their size. Because they got to know each other. And they did the right things. And if somebody started slipping, they could pick them up. Can't do that if you don't know them. People will resent, there's a very famous verse in the Bible. Keep saying very famous verses because I think everybody knows these. But parents, do not provoke your children to wrath, right? Children, obey your parents. Parents, do not provoke your child to wrath. It's in the Bible. That's Paul, who's single, advice on parenting. Right? It's wives, obey your husbands. Husbands, love your wife the way Christ loved the church, which is sacrificially. Parents, children, obey your parents. Parents, do not provoke your children to wrath. Do you know how you provoke a child to wrath? Discipline them if you don't know them. If you don't know a child and you discipline them, they will get angry with you. Who are you? When Emily was this little tyke, I got mad and I went to hit her on the back with something, and my hand caught her head, and I had this ring. I hit her right on the head with my ring. Oh, I felt awful, because man, that hurt. I know that hurt. I could feel it thud. And she went running away from me. I had to go after her because I was mad at her. I mean, I was wanting to punish her, but I was going to grab her to punish her, and I wasn't supposed to smack her in the head with a metal ring. And I finally caught up with her, and I'm sorry. It was a little while later, maybe a week later or so. She was with my ex-wife, her mom, and she came home really upset. And I said, what's going on? She goes, she hit me. She always hits me. I said, she hit you? She goes, yeah, she shouldn't hit me. And she looked at me, she says, you never hit me. I thought, I remember chasing you out of the room the other day because I hit you. And she actually would look at me like, you did? I said, yeah, don't you remember I hit you with my ring? Do you know why I didn't record her? Because I spent the time with her. Right? She didn't see that as, that was, I knew her, right? We had this deep fellowship where I'd spent hours with her. My ex blew in for the weekend. You want to provoke a child to wrath, punish them without knowing them. Do you know why some people are mad at God? They don't know who he is. They think they're getting punished by him. That makes people mad. We have to know each other. If I'm going to lovingly discipline you, I better know you. If I just point my finger and tell you what to do, that's not love. That's not with love, criticizing people. But you have to know them. You have to invest the time. You can't fake this. You either are there or you aren't. So here we go. Finally, finish this up. It's interesting to me that Jesus says this, where there are 2 or 3 gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. I always wondered about this verse. God's everywhere. Aren't you always in our midst? Can I go to Round Hill Park and pray and have your spirit touch me? I can. It's happened. But it's almost like what God's saying is, I will step in everybody's life at times. But this is a guarantee. You want to know my spirit? Get 2 or 3 together with our hearts in communion and in seeking mine, and I will be there. Promise. Right? And that is a very powerful thing that we take for granted. That's not how we use this verse. We use it like this. God, you've promised there's 2 or 3 together in your name, you'll be here. We're here. And this is what we're praying for you to give us. Right? So now that you're here, listen up. We need a healing now. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying, gather together 2 or 3 in my name, and I'll be there. End of sentence. We should say, hallelujah, praise the Lord. God will be here. Do you realize he just said that the maker of heaven and earth, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, is going to be here? Just to have him here in his presence? And we blow it by asking for something. We need to learn how to soak in the presence of God a little more. Let's just be with him, because that's what he wants us to be. So, are we the Church of Philadelphia or not? Well, that's going to be up to us. And I believe the most important thing is we need to start really seeking God's presence in our assembly. Would you all please pray with me? Heavenly Father, thank you for everything you've done for us and everything you've given to us and the way you continually bring us gently towards you. You lead, you do not push. You do not drive, you call. Give us the courage, Lord, to see the world the way you see it and come when you call, for we ask this in Jesus' name.